Welcome back, everyone. Today is our second day of the Anthroposophic conference in Malaysia. So before you enter to your interpretation room, so this is some remind everyone. So when you are in your computer screen, if you wish to change to Indonesian mode, so you have to press the globe button, interpretation, choose for English or Chinese, and then the third one is remember to mute your original sounds. Then you can enjoy the whole study journey. 大家下午好，那欢迎回来我们今天人智学大会的第二天。在你们的电脑的画面呢，如果你们想要收听中文翻译的话，请去点击这地球的图画，然后呢选择中文。第三步呢，请记得把你们的原音关上，要不然的话你们听到会两个语言的。OK。So if you are in the mobile screen, so you just follow the same thing. First of all, you choose the 3 dots more, and then choose for language interpretations, and choose for the audio that you want, and finally mute your original audio. 那如果你是用手机来上课的话呢，来学习的话，那也是一样，去找到下面的3个点，然后你点击进去里面，再找到那个地球的标志 language interpretations。然后呢，选择你要的语音，印尼文或者是中文，在最后请记得把你的原音关上 ，mute the original audio， 这样子就会有个很棒的学习体验。
Okay, welcome back everyone to the second day of this conference. So we hope that now you are aware of how to mute the original audio during the interpretation mode. Okay, so today we will start at 3 p.m. same, and today's ending will be a bit late as we had a reflection session in the evening. So the time will end around 9:30 p.m.
那大家只记得刚刚我的提醒，请把你的原音关掉。那今天呢，我们的大会会从3点开始呢，到晚上9点半的时候结束。那请记得我们在8点半的时候呢，会有个回顾的环节，让我们大家都有一个机会，可以把你这2天学习到的一些事情和些感想整合一下。
Okay, so once again, before we start our sharing session, we would first like to invite Chik Ying and Chong Yi to kickstart our second day with a eurythmy and verse recitation practice. And all are invited to do the practice together if you wish.
那接下来呢，我们有请我们的巨英老师和崇义老师为我们开始我们今天的学习，宋词诵读与游律诗美。那大家等下呢，可以跟着崇义老师一起做这个动作。我们把时间交给崇义老师和巨英老师。
谢谢。那我们今天像昨天一样，会首先安静的聆听一遍中文的宋词。那在聆听中文宋词的时候，大家可以依循聆听的感受，自由的在你的空间里行走。然后在这个2遍的英文宋词诵读时，我们邀请大家一起透过尤利斯美的律动去感受和体验。而后呢，我们将给大家简短的分享这个练习的体验和尤利斯美艺术的由来。那现在你可以慢慢的站起来，在一个舒适的空间里放松自己，慢慢做几个深呼吸，轻轻的把我们的觉知带到当下。那一会我将从中文宋词开始诵读。Today, like yesterday, we will quietly to the verse reading in Chinese, and you are welcome to move yourself freely around your space, following your feeling. Then when you hear the English reading, we will invite all to feel and experience through eurythmy movement. In the end, we will share a little regarding the experience of the exercise and a little about the origin of eurythmy art. So now you may slowly stand up, find yourself relaxed at a comfortable space. Take a few deep breaths. Gently ground yourself to this present moment. I will start with Chinese verse reading in a short while.心灵的期盼正在萌芽，意志的行动日渐茁壮，生命的果实即将成熟。我感知我的命运，我的命运找到我。我感知我的守护星，我的守护星照耀我。我感知人生的目标，它们先后淬炼我。我的心灵与这大千世界合而为一。生命的光辉日趋明亮，面临的挑战更加艰难，而内心也随之丰饶。The wishes of the soul are quickened. The deeds of the will are growing. The fruits of life are ripening. I feel my fate. My fate finds me. I feel my star. My star finds me. I feel my aims. My aims find me. My soul and the world are but one. Life will be brighter around me. Life will be more arduous for me. Life will be richer in me. The wishes of the soul are quickened. The deeds of the will are growing. The fruits of life are ripening. I feel my fate. My fate finds me. I feel my star. My star finds me. I feel my aims. My aims find me. My soul and the world are but one. Life will be brighter around me. Life will be more arduous for me. Life will be richer in me. 那我们现在请崇玉老师给我们先开始做分享。
大家下午好，我会跟大家分享学习宋词和尤利斯美的体验。当我们在开始学习一首诗词的时候，我们的心魂向我眼前的这首诗词敞开，然后用心去感应，并且透过倾听诗词，渐渐感受到诗词中的呼吸跟韵律之美，而诗词中的文字轻柔的在我们的内心回荡。在细细品尝诗词的过程中，死亡的文字渐渐的活了过来，全新的色彩生命从我内心深处升起。作者的心境与我的心魂相遇，诗词的作者隔着时空传递着温暖和光亮，而这些温暖和光亮充满我自身中。透过言说，这首诗词的生命、色彩、温暖和光亮，透过我流淌到我自身中和这个世界。就像我们从练习中体验到的一样，首先是聆听和连接这首诗词。I feel my fate, my fate finds me。其次，我们渐渐的找到诗词中的呼吸、节奏、轻、重、短、长。I feel my fate, my fate finds me。然后第三，色彩的泉源会在我们的心中升起，也许是蓝色。I feel my fate, my fate finds me。也许是黄色 ，I feel my fate, my fate finds me。最后，我们自身生命经验与这首诗词，真正连接的真实感受，它就像是一个从物质、以太、星芒到自我的一个过程。而尤利斯美是透过我们身体这个乐器，把这个声音和语言的形塑力量给演奏出来，所以尤利斯美也被称为可见的音乐和可见的语言。I will share with you the experience of learning verse, and you with me. When we start to learn a verse, we open our hearts to the verse in front of us, and we feel it by listening to the verse. We gradually feel the beauty of breathing and rhythm in the verse, and the verse and the words in the verse gently echoes in our hearts. In the process of tasting the verse, the dead verse gradually came to life. A new color life rose from the depths within my heart. The author's mood and mind meets my heart, and the authors of the verse sends warmth and light across time and space. This warmth and light fills me. True speaking, the life, color, warmth, and light of this poem, this verse, flow through me into myself and into the world. Like what we experience from the exercise, first we are listening and connecting ourselves to the verse. I feel my fate finds me. Second, we find the breathing and rhythm within the verse, the light and heavy, the short and long. I feel my fate finds me. Third, the fountain of colors will arise within our heart, maybe blue. I feel my fate finds me. Maybe yellow. I feel my fate finds me. is like a process from physical, etheric, astral to ego. And eurythmy is to play out the forming forces of sound and language through the instrument of our body. So eurythmy is also described as visible music and visible language.
Thank you, 崇义。谢谢崇义哦。那尤利斯美呢？这一词源自古希腊语，如崇义老师分享所提到的，那意思是和谐有韵律的动作。尤利斯美是20世纪初鲁道夫·史泰纳在人智学的基础上发展出来的一门新艺术，通过这个充满活力、充满生命活力的节律，这样的一种律动和音声，活络我们的心魂，让我们的身体、心魂与灵性融为一体，使我们能够与宇宙的规律法则连接，让我们活跃起来，缓解我们身心的压力，也为人的有机体带来和谐和健康。Eurythmy is a term originated from Greek. As teacher Chong-yi shared, it means a rhythmic movement in harmony. Eurythmy is a new art form developed by Rudolf Steiner in the early 20th century in the lights of Anthroposophic. It enlivens our soul and integrates our body, soul, and spirit through the rhythmical movements and sounds which fill with living forces. This experience enables human body to connect with the laws of the universe. It helps enliven, release mental and physical stresses, brings harmony and help to human organism. 那这是我们今天简短的分享。我们祝福大家带着一颗温暖敞开的心，在今天的课程中，与讲师、与伙伴、与自己真实的相遇和连接。那现在我们将空间交回给丽恩和天之。Here we end our contribution for today. We wish you warmth and love in meeting all beings throughout the course today. Now we pass the space back to Lian and Tianzi.
Thank you, Chik Ying and Chong-yi. And thank you both for the demonstration and explanation on eurythmy and the verse recitation. Now, I hope that all of you get a better picture of why and how we practice eurythmy and this verse recitation.
我们谢谢巨莹和崇业老师带来我们优美的宋词和优美的优律诗美。那我相信现在大家会有比较清楚了解为什么优律诗美是多么的重要。那你们在家其实可以练习，多多练习。
Okay, now before we dive into today's first session, we would like to take a bit of time to introduce and show appreciation to both of our interpreters, Alan and Shijun. Okay, where's both of them? We would like to just show you guys our magnificent interpreters. So can you both raise your hand so that we can spotlight you? This is Shijun, our Chinese interpreter, and this is Alan, our Bahasa Indonesia interpreter. Now it is hard work having to, connect the speaker to the audience. So our interpreter really puts in effort to make sure that all of our participants can understand what the speakers are trying to deliver. So if you all may, let's give a round of applause to both of them for their efforts. Now we can't do it online, so you can do the reaction with a clap or type it down in the chat box to show them your appreciations.
那在我们今天的大会还没开始之前呢，我们先占用大家一点点的时间，来向我们的两位翻译也先别走，思俊，不要先别走。 向我们2位的翻译的志工来说声谢谢，因为如果没有他们2个的话，那我们可能不是那么容易听得懂英语的同学，或者是印尼的同学会比较难懂。那我们先谢谢我们印尼的 Alan， 还有来自我们马来西亚的思君。所以这个翻译员的角色呢，其实是非常非常重要的，他就像是一个桥梁，将我们的与会者和我们的讲师连接起来。那大家也可以在我们的 chat room 里面，就是聊天室里面打上拍手的模式，或者是你们可以做一个拍手的动作。那我们谢谢他们2个为我们的付出。
Thank you both. Okay, so now back to today's conference. So today, our first session, we are very delighted and honored to have Mr. Chong Siew-ho with us today to share some insight with us about associative economy. Now, Siew-ho, he is a very passionate person in localizing consumer and producer supply chain and operationalizing producer incubation programs to improve the local circular economy and associative economy. Having been in the corporate banking industry for more than 9 years, he realized that the importance of community well-being. And so in 2021, he decided to co-create with other like-minded individuals to form the Kongsi Co-op.
那接下来呢，我们有请到我们的主讲人张兆豪来为我们说说何谓共创合作经济。兆豪呢，他热衷于消费者与生产者的供应链本体化，并实施生产者的培育计划，以改善当地循环经济和关联经济。在企业银行工作了9年之后呢，他意识到了社区福祉的重要性，并于2021年决定与其志同道合的伙伴们共同创建的空隙 Co-ops， 就是我们说空隙合作社。那我们把接下来的时间交给兆豪。Please welcome Siew-ho for his presentation.
Thank you, Tenzi. Thank you, Iris. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siew-ho. Thank you for inviting me by contributing myself to a journey that together with a group like-minded person in establishing the associative economy in Malaysia. So I'll start my sharing with my personal story and my personal experience, how we end up what we are having today. So back into almost 10, 11 years ago, when I was still in my engineering school studying engineering, manufacturing engineering specifically. So our lecturer always talks about, as an industrial engineer or as a manufacturer engineer, we talks about work efficiency in the process line. We talk about how we can make the processes more effective in producing our products. And also through all the materials and resources, how we can optimize all these resources so that we can create more stuff for the consumer. But end up after 4 years of engineering study, so I'm a bit embarrassed that I didn't really practice my engineering skill at all, but I was pleasured to work with a national bank in my country. However, through the past almost 10 years, which mentioned by Tianzi, the few things that I learned in the banking line was about how we can use credit or borrowing, or even sub-deposits that we earn from our salary for wealth creation. And again, this is much on the individual basis on how we can make more money out of our money. While I was in the industry, so I had a career transition where I feel that my engineering knowledge I'm not able to translate to the business knowledge. So, and again, during that 10 years, I worked myself through the business school and I further my studies and understanding on how the business works about their cash flow and how as a business we can work on profit maximization or optimization. and to understand through all the business what will be our income and expenses in running a business. But all this experience, all this knowledge, they actually contribute into one thing where everything are on an inclined upward arrow. Whatever it is, for example, whether you want to grow your business, it will be on an upward scale. Whether you want to increase your salary, it will be on your upward scale. Or even if you would want to improve your livelihood, everything would be on the upward scales. And of course, the financial industry for the last 10 years, even though there is some economy recession, the business are running good, everything is coming up. So my 10 years is actually, yes, I have a lot of fortune, I have a lot of opportunity, and then it seems the life is so good with all the money that I have. So this is a very typical way of living, that we are living ourselves in the capitalist economic system where money is everything. But until the recent pandemic that we saw in year 2020 or even 2021 in Malaysia, we had the hard hit, as you can see from the pictures that I show you. Our government actually have ordered total lockdown, and then none of us could actually travel at the first few stage in the country during the lockdown movement. And certain areas, as you can see on the left, on the right picture, a barricade, as if there's something very, very terrifying happening on our nation. This actually caused lots of trauma to many of us. And I mentioned that with the wealth creation that I made for the past 10 years, it comes to a realization that even with all the monies that I gain, the problem is I cannot buy food, I cannot buy relationship, and I cannot see how the world works anymore. Even though I have the privilege working in the essential service back then, called by the government, I still can move around to buy stuff, even though there is a total lockdown. But with the pocket of monies, I still need to grab and chase for food, where previously we thought that food is something essential and then we take for granted. Some essential stuff, some essential grocery are so easy for us to get in daily. But during that 2 years' time, the experience was awful. Tissue paper was limited stock. Food, we are not able to gain anyway. So, and in fact, even with all the monies that you have, it is very difficult to find a nice thing to have. So, like all the others who are in a panic mode in the first two lockdown, during the duration in 2020 to early 2021. So like the others, me and my family has packed whatever things that we think we can actually hold it for a long period in case that there is a prolonged lockdown where we cannot go out anywhere or anytime anymore. So during this period, we really think about, is this going to last forever? Or is this only temporary happening? And in fact, even though it's temporal, it actually created a very long-lasting effect where we're still worried about what would happen next if there is another lockdown. But you might ask, this is a century event where it rarely happens before. But if we look back since the early 19th century, we have a lots of major economic crisis has happened, especially after the 1960, more and more economic crises are happening in a more frequent manner. And especially in this 10 years, as you can see from the timeline that I have prepared for everyone, almost every year we are suffering on economic crisis. So maybe we are not in that country, or maybe we are so pampered with what we have right now, we don't really feel what happened. But I would say that if, let's say, another COVID situation happened again, so it will be another social outbreak that we will need to face for a few more years ahead. So let's go back. When I was in the company back then, I asked my colleague a question. While everyone's still suffering on whether they have an opportunity to last for another few months due to their financial constraint, because during the lockdown period, many are unable to work for themselves or for their household. So that actually create a lot of issue for each families, because most of their source of income or source of revenue has been restricted. Because as there is Chinese saying, the Cantonese saying, like my family always said, when your hands stop and your mouth stop as well. So meaning that if you can't work, your livelihood will be affected greatly. So the question that I asked my colleague back then, while everyone is still figuring out how that we can move along to survive during that pandemic situation, the company that I had is a very reliable company, and then business still running quite well. So I brought up this question and asked, when we have our business planning in a few years' time, should we think about the business, our business, or should we think about the community well-being? Because as the corporate that we have the power to help everyone to overcome the trauma that we experienced in the last 2 years. Sadly, one of my colleagues said, even though it's a pandemic time, we still work for business first. So can you imagine if a financial company talks about business? So I'll let you imagine what kind of business or financial institute will look about. After that conversation, I have lots of questions in my mind, even though I already have many things about how solid is the current economic system that we have. Whether, even though I am working with a very reputable company, but is my job secure? Or if that is anything happen, will I be the next invited to leave the company, whether it is voluntary separation or by involuntary separation? And if I would continue my lifestyle, can I have the ability to buy a house or even support our children to work, our children to school? And also during the 2 years we had, I really think about what would be the true and genuine needs for our daily life, instead of continually buying stuff that may or may not be necessary for our daily livelihood. And through the corporate experience that we have, are we in the right path in co-creating a collaborative economy that everyone can be beneficial on the works that we offer to the others? So in that time, I was in the junction, at the crossroad, to think about where am I going to head for the next few years. There's a few questions raised. Whether should I continue the same job and continue with the company, which give you the ultimate comfort, because everything is so familiar and then you feel secure in your current job? Or should I challenge myself with different job but still work in the company? Or I remain the same job, and work for different company by transferring my knowledge to another company who might need it. Or another very drastic move, which are change job and change another company. So at the end, I have made my choice that I choose to have a different job and different company. And from that angle, I am really honored and pleasure to meet Kong Si. And during meeting Kong Si Co-op, I found that there is a book, a very wonderful book that really sum up the question that I asked earlier on, about the associative economics. So, and then this associative economics actually very different from the capitalism economic system that I shared with you earlier on. In this associative economics, it actually emphasizes on the rights, on the culture, and also on the economics sphere, that everyone would be involved in these three spheres. So, and it actually emphasizes on how we can work together in making a balance for our social well-being. And also in each spheres, it would be working as a whole, where the rights should have the equal weightage on culture and also economics as well. So none of the spheres should overpower to the others. Then only you can have a balanced society or community that we can work together in a collaborative ecosystem. So from the economy aspect, it actually emphasizes on the relationship of producer, distributors, and also consumers, and how these three parties should work together as a whole so that everyone could benefit from the business sense that we work together. Either one will actually take advantage from another two parties, it will cause a disruptive imbalance in making a economic that benefit everyone's in our current society. And also when we talk about the rights involve in human rights, political rights, and the rights of being very democratically have a say on what we want to do together. So as a principles that in working on the rights issue, on how we can work in this rights sphere that we can have open and voluntary membership or co-ownership to work together as a community. And also everyone will have a say that we can work together on a very democratic manners. And every members who are from a different background may have an equal participation in working out on the economic lifestyle. And also we are very dependent and autonomy so that we are free from other influence, that we can work together to build the community that we think it will be helpful for everyone. And also through this principles of rights, we think that the economy, the training and information should be shared equally to everyone so that everyone are on the equal platform to raise their livelihood in this community. And of course, we would share the same concern to each communities and cooperate with everyone so that we can improve our social well-being. And also, we emphasize on the culture because we believe that through the culture, it actually brings the identity for everyone, telling that who you are, why we are here, and what we can do for the people. And the culture in this aspect, it includes, but not limited to, improving our science knowledge, having everyone to have an equal share on education, and also emphasize on the art, because through arts, it will find yourself, and then it will improve your inner well-being to contribute to the greater society. And also we cherish every different culture from different races, different religion background, so that we would know everyone would have, despite their different background, we are a community together. And by having this all aspect through the threefold society that we have in this associative economy, we strive that we can achieve freedom by practicing the culture that we have, so that everyone is free to bring their strength to enrich the development of the society as a whole. And we talk about right, we empower everyone with equality, so that the power is dependent from economy power, and everyone are being equal to each other. And through that, we can work together so that the needs of others are met by my work, and just as my needs are met by the other works. So by having this three-folding society in mind from a associative economic aspects, Gongxi Co-op are able to work on that principle to aim that we can create a three-folding society through our working. So through this, we are able to come up with one vision based on the three-folding society as a bigger picture. And we have 4 core values that we would like to cherish and share out. And also holding 7 principles to every workings or activities that we have, in order that we can truly achieve the three-folding society. So in our vision, we hope that through our working and through our activities, we can connect people, soil, and nature to create a harmonious system. And because the values that we have together, we would want to create a community that based on whatever we have, in order that we can work out a newer community together. For example, like a house that we have here. So we also want to create a new community or a three-folding society through some of the resources that we have. Despite on having a very old and run-down environment, it actually brings us imagination or even some abstract thinking that how we can turn this to become another better area for everyone. And through our creation, we also feel that our work can connect people, so that it turns into a platform for people and resources that can come together. And because of our working, we're able to connect different people, like the farmer that you see on the right. He's working alone for quite some time. And because through our platform, we got connected. And in fact, he is a very talented farmer who are doing a very academic work on BB research farming. And as you can see, together with her sister on the website, they are creating a wonderful herb garden based on the BD principle or the biodynamic principle together to form their farming. And because of by connection of different peoples, we are able to get people around, as you can see in the picture, to share their experience, to share their journey, and also by connecting them to the producer and to the consumer as well. And also, we are also very honored that we are being connected with people from different countries to share our experience, so that we as a community and as a one community, that we can listen and also share our experience and how that we can move forward and improve together as a whole. And also over here, I would like to take the opportunity to share with us some of the activities that we had earlier on. And because through the different background that we have, we are also honored to invite Gloria Decanter from Life Power Community to share her experience. And we believe through all this connection that we have, we are able to break down the geopolitical boundaries and work towards a three-folding society that we want to work together. And because of the creation and the connection that we work constantly, it becomes a cycle that we think that the money and all the resources should flow back to the society and not hoard by the individuals. As a compared to the capitalism economy, where the more that you make, the more that you will become better. But in fact, I would say there is a flaw on that that system. It's because that if the balance has been tilted just only to your end and without considering the wellness of the community, they might not able to bring you to another higher level. So it is very important on what we gain. It should flow back as a cycle to the society. Because when everyone are able to uplift themselves, we individually can be raised to a higher ground. And also, some of the culture that also we want to think is, if we continue on the practices that we have currently, and what are the words that we will leave behind for our future generation? Would you want to leave a future for our next generation who would only cherish on the very cold lifelessness gadgets that we have seen today? Or we would like to see children of the next generation appreciate on what we have on our nature and the relationship that we have as a human per se. And through all these values and vision, the 7 principles that we can gain from this understanding are how we can work together for a better farm produce, so that we can take care of our soil and nature, so that as a return, we can have a better life force produced for our consumption. And also through our doing, even though there are still many things or products that we need for our daily life, at least can we have a products that we can make it to be more friendly to the people and environment, so that everyone could enjoy the environment and equally, and having every people to be treated with dignity and equality. And through this, a green consumption model should be introduced so that we can have a minimum wastage of our resources. As you can see, our resources now and moving forward are getting more limited and scarce. And eventually, the resources will be depleting on a manner that we will not able to use or take for granted as we used before. And also, though we are still need to work for our livelihood through different business means, but can we do business without exploiting others and nature? And also, we want to support our local businesses, and also especially supporting our local farmers and artisans, because they are the truly economic backbone that will really bring us to a next level. And on the 6th point, and also I would like to mention especially that one of our work, the Kongsi Academy, we will also want to provide a diverse and holistic education, because we strongly believe education should not stop at the children or the minor level, but everyone including us, the adults, should continue us to be educated from a different perspective so that it could help us to improve us as an individual and also as a community so that we can work by thinking about others and caring about others. And through all these 6 principles, we hope that through our doing, we can create a sustainable community with the circular economy in mind. So with all the vision, the core values, and the principles, I would like to share some of the applied economy activities that we have been working out in the past almost 2 years. Our works are really emphasizing on the activities that we are doing, the peoples that we meet and then work together, and the resources that we are using with them with full gratitude. We started by thinking different activities because through all the thinkings, then we can connect, we can meet with people, and then we create endless possibility together. Because of this thinking part, we are able to make things happen. So as you can see, through the creation of all different parts over here, right? We connect more and more people who have the same thoughts of thinking with us so that we can find more different things that we can help in bringing our community to the next level. And because to the endless findings of activities, we're able to meet with different peoples. And because of this connection, we're able to develop ourselves, not only developing the others, but also developing ourselves innerly and outwardly. Of course, the outer part is not about makeup, right? But you will feel more confident and you will feel how you can make yourself to be a better person. After talking about the activities and the people, and also the things that I really want to mention, the resources of time, the resources of goods, raw materials, and even times where we often take for granted. And then most of the time are these resources that can really make us a true human being. Because without all these resources, we're not able to do the activities that we made, and also we are not able to meet the people that we intended to meet. So I would also want to invite every one of you to really show your gratitude to the resources that you have found so far, and also to the resources that you will be finding very soon. And this actually comes in a cycle, because when activities happens, then you will develop the people. And then once you develop the people, you will find a better potential of the resources that you can gain. And by exposing the potential of the resources, then you will have more activities happening soon. So, and because our works are working at a very cycle manner, it actually helps us to work on different primary activities that we are working right now. So some of the few primary activities that we have is the Kongsi Academy, community building and development, producer incubation, core purchase consumerism model, and also how we can develop the co-op together. So through all these activities, we hope that we can co-create, co-purchase, co-share, and co-exist. And up to now, you might ask, so what are the relationship with the tree-folding society that we have? But I would say that because through all these activities that we have, we are able to make the economical needs so that we can free ourselves by doing from the others, we can sustain our livelihood from economical means. And from the right angle, so we are able to discuss everyone how and why we want to move in that direction. And together we can work as a community. So all rights are being secured and everyone are given the opportunity to develop themselves. And through all these activities, it became our culture. It improved ourselves so that we can think about what will be the culture that we want to pass to our next generation. So over here, I'd like to give you a question to think about. What are the community that you would like to live in? A three-folding society base, a three-folding base community or society, or an endless community that think about the capitalism that we have currently. And if you have the opportunities, so what are the things they are looking for? So over here, I'd like to invite you, if you do not know what kind of things that you want to work together, so why not co-establish associative economies with us or locally? So if you do not know how to establish this associative economies, why not connect with us? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Siu Ho, for such an eye-opening sharing on associate.
OK 好，谢谢。
Sorry, there seems to be a disturbance. But yes, once again, thank you, Siu Ho, for such a wonderful and eye-opening sharing. Now, I hope you all understand more about how economy actually works. And I hope you guys can go back and think about the question that Siu Ho had just asked, what kind of society you would like to live in, or what kind of community you would like to live in your future.
我们谢谢赵豪的分享，我觉得他宣传的非常的精彩，他把很多的观念都让我们去提醒我们一下，到我们现在现今的社会到底怎么了。他最后一个问题，我觉得也是很撼动、很感动的是，我们想要在一个怎样的社区跟社会里生活？大家可以带着这个问题好好的思考一下。
Okay, and so now we will have our 5-minute break. So the time now is 3.
Sorry to chip in and interrupt. We just received a very big and warm gift from our China's. It's so touching. I feel so warm and so touched. And I would like to invite what they call this Wei Lao Shi from China, 三元翻译社, and would like to share his kind gesture to every one of us. 魏老师，我可以邀请你来跟我们分享你送给我们大家的礼物吗？来自中国三元翻译社的魏老师，你举手一下，我可以 unmute 你。我们有请中国这个三元翻译社的魏老师好，来，请你打开您的麦克风。魏老师，您可以打开一下您的那个麦克风吗？你的那个音频，我请求你打开音频。
Maybe we can.
他OK 哈，老师，我先打开一下哈，OK，来，魏老师， 您可以打开哈，谢谢。
哦，好，现在可以了。好，谢谢，好，谢谢我们这个马来西亚社群的邀请哈。我刚才听了这个，我不知道你这个中文名应该怎么写拼哈，这个
赵好，
道好是吗？
张赵好。
赵豪是吧？我刚才听到这个就是赵豪老师的分享哈，我觉得非常的兴奋，也非常的激动，因为这个他是以这个罗道夫斯泰纳的这个那大家可以听到我的声音吗？刚才有朋友说，可能有部分朋友他还在那个中文传译频道里面，有可能会听不到我的声音哈，他需要回到主频道里面来。你们那个会务组的朋友可以提醒一下，在那个就是聊天框里面可以提醒一下。我先自我介绍一下，我是来自这个三元翻译社的魏明宇，
可能要请你帮忙提醒一下，请他们回来。
对，要请他们回到主会场来，那个把那个同传频道给取消。好的，可能大部分朋友都已经回来了哈，然后也是三元共学社的联合创始人。我们呢在2017年开始呢创办了三元翻译社。其实我们翻译的第一本书哈，就是和经济有关，是鲁道夫·塞坦纳的《世界经济》。也是这个应该说我们在翻译施泰纳的每一本这个一个新的领域的书的时候，都是打开了一个新的一个世界。不管是经济的呀，还是营养的呀，还是这个艺术的呀，还是科学的呀，还是这个自然学科呀等等，我们基本上每本第一个领域的书都想给翻译成那个名字，都想给命名成颠覆传统认知的什么什么什么。其实确实是这样的，有很多和我们这个平时学的，和我们平时因为我以前也和这位朋友和这个赵豪老师一样哈，在大企业里面去打工，然后呢也是这个经历了这个完整的这个资本主义企业的这种流程。我以前在西门子工作了差不多有10年的时间哈。然后，我们在翻译的过程中哈，就觉得有很多有趣的东西。然后今天呢，这个听了这个赵老师的这个分享哈，我觉得非常的兴奋，也非常的激动。因为一方面呢，这个是他在这个阐述用这个合作经济的这个理念来去共建这个三元社会。我们知道鲁道夫·斯泰纳其实最早他的这个思想理论，其实他的目标就是去构建三元社会。因为他当时是这个通过渠道联系到了德国当时的时任的副总统还是副总理，已经把他的整个的这个提案提交了过去，但最后由于种种原因呢没有被采纳，所以这个时候他才去这个有了这个埃米尔·莫尔特去这个资助了这个第一个华德福教育，然后他才用他的理念去退而求次去做了华德福教育。其实他的这个本来的这个最终的目标是构建这个三元社会，但这个后来他觉得还是要从教育来入手，然后后来才有了华德福教育。其实我们呢这个也是一直这个倡导的理念是不光是这个去翻译书，能够去让大家有书可读，更重要的是能够去把这个读到的东西，读到的知识，因为知识很多，怎么能够去实践出来，这个其实是最重要的。实践之后，然后怎么能够去把它分享给身边有需要的人，这个其实也是一个更高一步的这个对自己的这种要求，其实也可以这个更好的这个照顾到更多的人。因为这个我们这个佛家叫这个自觉觉他，然后修行圆满。这个其实我们学习也是这样的一个过程。我刚好非常巧哈，前2天不是这个我们的双11嘛，这个大家都在各种疯狂的抢购各种这个物品，然后我们也在想，我们双11也想做一点活动，但是我们这个不想去给大家增加更多购买的负担，也不想去给这个已经拥挤的物流去增加麻烦，所以我们这就在想，我们能不能这个把我们的这个 书这个逐步的，因为我们已经5年了嘛，我们想这个每一年可以有几本书，然后能够去免费的分享出来，然后这个回馈给我们的这个整个的这个华语社群，所以我们正在想以什么样的书开始更合适。今天刚好听到了蔡豪老师的这个分享，然后我们就做了一个决定，然后我们就先从这本合作经济学开始，我们呢会把这本书呢免费的分享给我们整个华语社群的朋友们，然后我们的译者维宁老师也是呢专门这个把这本书，因为知道马来西亚要这个大规模的去读书哈，然后去实践，我们又邀请他专门把这本书重新审校了一遍，然后呢我们会在最近几天呢把这个最新的这个电子版，我们会有几个版本哈，一个是 PDF 版，可能对大多数朋友来讲是比较实用的，还会有一个 EPUB 版，就是 EPUB， 这个我们用手机看书的朋友们都知道，这个是在手机上看是非常方便的。还有一个那个 MOBI 版，就是也是一种电子书的格式，还有一个 AZW 版是可以用 Kindle 来看的。就是我们会把几个格式，然后发给这个发给生命教育学院这边，然后他们会转发给我们这个所有注册参加大会的朋友们，然后其他的没有参加大会的朋友们呢，我们会再去我们现在也在找渠道哈，怎么样把这些书放在哪一个平台，然后能够去不断的去更新，增加新的材料，增加新的这个免费的书，因为我们现在前面的公益书也差不多是有6、7本、7、8本的样子了，我们把这些书也会把电子格式上传上去，我们现在也在找这样的平台，如果大家有这个合适的平台来推荐的话，也可以私信我哈，很多朋友也有我的微信。好，那我就分享这些，然后这也算是一个小礼物，奉献给我们的这个2022年马来西亚人文学大会，也祝愿大会圆满成功。好，谢谢大家。
好，谢谢魏老师。Yeah, I summarize the sharings introduced by our Mr. Wei Lao, Teacher Wei. Yeah, after hearing Siu Ho's sharing about the associative economy, Wei Lao Shi, Teacher Wei from China. 魏老师，你的那个三元翻译社的英文名字，我是可以直译吗？Is from China.
Yes, threefold. Yeah.
It's a threefold publications. Translation and publication house, where they translate mostly anthroposophic learnings, the material from Germany English to Chinese, and they publish all this learning material in China, where they also promote the anthroposophic learning. So in order to support the associative economics, to co-create the community and to promote this method, this model. So he has a very nice gesture and would like to present this book in the Chinese version, right, to all of the participants today. Yeah, and he hoped that this gesture and the opportunity, the gift, would like to encourage or inspire more of us to build this threefold society in every places. So he would like to, he also, the translator would like to re-edit some part of the content to improve the content. And then within these few days, he would like to share with us the books in PDF or EPUB or MOBI or several format. And maybe we can share these books with every one of us, with every one of you. So we are so excited and we feel so warm when we receive these messages, you know. So immediately we just would like to invite Teacher Wei to share the intention and his gesture to everyone. Yeah. So we will put this PDF, the file, to the Padlet, and we will try our best to circulate to share this file with every one of you. Yeah, so sooner or later, you will get a copy of it. But this copy is only for the Chinese version because they translated from English to Chinese. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your translation, the invitation.
Thank you，谢谢。
好，
Okay.
大家再见。
Thank you, Grifo Publication. This is a very, very wonderful gift to all of us. Yes. So we will continue with the breaks. Yes, Samantha? Should we continue with the breaks? Yeah. So, okay, we have a 5 minutes break. So now it's
4:10.
Yeah, 4:10. So please be back by a quarter.
4:15.
Yes, 4:15, 4:15. Yeah, so now you may go take a break. Zoom will still be open. And up next, we will have Mr. Rolf's sharing again with the same topic as yesterday. The biography in the light of receiving and giving care. So please be back in time for that.
我们谢谢魏老师的这个礼物。那现在呢，我们进入我们的歇息5分钟的环节。那现在是4点10分，我们待会儿在4点15分的时候，大家请准时回来会议室。那我们会议室呢还是会打开的，大家请不要离开会议室。休息回来的时候呢，我们也有请我们的 Rolf 老师为我们主讲，从接受与给予关怀的角度来看人生传记。大家可以去休息了。
So welcome back. And now we will have Mr. Rolf Heine again with us today to continue with the topic we had yesterday, the biography in the light of receiving and giving care.
欢迎回来。那现在呢，我们有请我们的 Rolf 老师为我们来分享第2天的环节。我们的主题从接受和给予关怀的角度来看人生传记。我们有请 Rolf 老师。Please welcome Mr. Rolf Heine for his sharing.
Where is Sir? So okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, and thank you very much for the last contribution about transformation of our economic life and the transformation of farming and all these beautiful initiatives that had been mentioned, because it is most important that when we talk about our own biography, that we have a very deep look on ourselves, but this view on ourselves must be always balanced with a view on the society in which we live, in the communities with which we are connected. That is a needed balance, not to become too much egocentric. As an I, we live in our bodies, but at the same time, we are in deep connections with nature around us and with human communities around us. You sent a lot of questions, more than 50 questions with regard to the last talk. And of course, it is not possible to answer all of them in details. And some of them had been already answered by Dr. Michaela in her beautiful talk about trauma and how to transform trauma. But these questions also gave me the opportunity to make some aspects of the last presentation more clear. And so I want to repeat some of yesterday's perspectives and go more into the depth. We had been talking about the very early childhood, beginning from the embryological perspective. And if we look on this very early period of our biography, we must say that this period is mainly driven, let's say, by nature. And nature, of course, is not only a biochemical mechanism. Nature is also it's another aspect of the spirit. Nature is something which is penetrated, which is integrated into spirit. And these laws, these processes that form a human body, these processes are protected and are working as natural and physical and spiritual forces. But nor the parents, nor the individual that is growing in the mother is directing this process. And so in the development of the embryo, there is a very clear order in how things develop. And in the first days of this development, any hour plays an important role. And then later on, any day plays an important role. And then at the end of pregnancy, the weeks play an important role. And so everything has its own time. And then after birth, that's also the case. Yes, there is a period of development which is given by nature, but also now from the social environment in which the baby is born into. And so the parents and the family, and if a child is not able to live in a family, it's the cultural and the social environment which allows and which helps and supports the newborn to develop as a human being. And we see that after birth, there is some more freedom in that development. And the times when things are developing in the early child are becoming more and more independent from a strict rule. So it's not day or the 9th or the 10th month when the teeth are coming. There's a span of time in which such physiological process and ripening and maturing is possible. And also when a toddler starts to walk, it depends. It's more and more getting individual. And some of them can walk with 9 months, others with 1 year, and others with 1 year and a half. And so there's more and more freedom. And also, it is most important to look on the child and see that when a child tries to get connected with the world by its senses and by trying to move the head and the arms and the legs and turning from the back to the front and so on. In all these processes need time, they need repetition, and they are more or less successful. And in that way of stepping into walking, into speaking, into thinking, there are a lot of possibilities to fail. But the good thing is that the baby, the toddler, the young child has so much energy to make the mistake good and to try it again and again and again. And this power to make it good again, to try it another way, to try it until the upright walking can really happen. This is most important to know if we look on a human biography, that there is not only a law of development, and which we do, and if we do not, let's say, obey to this law, if we do not follow this law in each step, that could happen. It could happen that the parents, out of a specific situation in the family, on their jobs, they are not able to fulfill all the needs of the baby. Of course, that should not happen, but sometimes it happens. And then we must be aware that there are also forces to compensate that which come out of the child itself. So there is a lot of positive energy to make things good. And also in the social environment, there are not only forces which are destructive or which are hindering the development of the child, but they are also forces to support that. Nature supports that. Other human beings in the neighborhood can support that. So please, if you look on the development of a child, don't look only on things that are needed to do and things that are to be avoided, but also on the huge power that is within the child to make things good and to transform things in a good way. And one of your questions was how to recall that memory of childhood. And yes, if there are wounds from that very first period of our lives, then it is not so easy to get a smooth approach to that time. Then there is a barrier to get into a positive memory of that time. And maybe it is possible to have a positive look on even the own biography if you watch children playing. And then you might find, if you watch a child in the age of 2 or 3 playing with toys on a playground, walking and feeling really connected with the environment and deeply connected with his play. And if you look on that, you might be sad because you find that watching this play, it touches you in a deep way. And maybe it recalls that you had been missing something in that time. And even if you miss something in that time, you might find a place in your memory where you could also have a positive experience, something that protects you in your own space, in your own development. And sometimes it's possible to have some pictures from the past, or you hear the stories from your parents or others about you as a child. And this can also recall memories. And then try to find the positive aspects by your own will. If these memories do not come from their own, then try to find them by your own imagination, by your own wishes, by your own desires. So that can open that space into a childhood memory. Another question was, where are the memories? Where is our history if we cannot remember our own history, our own biography before the age of 3 or when the memory starts? That's an important question because it shows that things happened, of course, also when we were born, and in the first 3 years without having a memory, things had been happened. But we were not responsible, and we were not so much the actors in that. Everything that happens in these 3-4 years, 2, 3, 4 years, has been initiated by the social environment in which we live, by our parents, by grandparents, and so on, by families and other human beings, and also the social circumstances in which we live. But it was not our intention. It was not the impulse of our I to be actively working in that field in which we are born. And therefore, there cannot be an individual memory in that time. And if there are negative events that we might be remembering, traumatic experiences, and some children or some adults have a memory on a traumatic birth situation sometimes. It could happen, it's very seldom, but it can happen. Or another trauma in that time. That is not that we have a clear view on what has happening, but we are looking, let's say, on a kind of scarf, on a wound in that time. And then that kind of wound we can perceive that should be, let's say, protected. It is not so important to open the cover of that wound, but let that wound be under the cover of forgetting things. Let they sleep. And you can be sure that under that cover, healing processes are working. And sometimes, of course, that also needs the help of professional, psychological, or a trauma therapist. That could be the case if such a trauma has really a strong impact on your daily behavior or on relationships you are not able to live with, and then a therapy would be can be recommended. Another question was, what shall we do if we found these beautiful golden moments in our early life? Yes, this is a treasure, and you should keep it as a treasure. And if you are sad or if you have problems, you can open that chamber in which you know that this treasure lays and is living. And then it could be really a strengthening force to recall these images of a beautiful situation in your youth, even if there are also difficult situations. But look on the light that comes from these positive moments. Then we look on the age of 1 or of 3 years and the moment when the child begins to say I, and that is very often connected with the first memory from the perspective of that I. And when that I appears, it is a first approach of incarnation. The I does not really live the whole time in the same way as it lives in an adult. But it was a first approach. And this approach will guide the further development. It could be hidden more or less, but it will never go back. If that I has been present one time, it is a very strong, makes a very strong impact on the further development. And that is about the age of 3. A first approach of the I. And a second approach of the I in the next 7 years period, that is around the age of 8 and 9, 8 or 9, and that is what we called the Rubicon. Now the I appears again in a very impressive way, sometimes in impressive inner developments the child makes, and that is very often connected with a separation, an inner separation from the family. And of course, any separation can be painful. Even birth can be painful as a separation from the mother. Any separation is painful, but sometimes it's a joyful pain. Joyful pain is a contradiction, but we must describe it in that way. On the one hand, it is to leave something back. But on the other hand, a new space opens. The child crossing the Rubicon finds some independence, an independent inner space. A space which is not the family's space. It is something inside the question, where do I come from? Why I am an individual? Why I am not identical with my family? These are the questions, and these are necessary questions, even if they are sometimes painful. And if you find in your memory that you wanted to be separate from your parents, and you are questioning, are these really my parents, or do I have other parents? Or also the experience that there might have been somebody who died in a person you have known or you have been connected with, grandparents or friends in the social environment. And that also means that the visible social connection with this person is gone, but you can find an inner connection to your grandfather, your grandmother, or the person who have died. And that inner connection is something very, intimate. It has something to do with the other can live in me, and not only I am living in my family, in the social environment. So it is something to turn from the outside into an inner perception. And therefore the encounter with death and dying is also a signal or a point in which the crossing the threshold of the Rubicon can be expressed in a human biography. And the year of 12, that is not a Rubicon experience. This is the experience of the fulfillment, completion of childhood. Can say that all the wisdom that the spiritual world had been providing, had been supporting the child, in that age can become visible for a last time before it will disappear, before the children end their childhood and step into adolescence. And that is a beautiful time for the child, and sometimes it radiates to the environment, to the family. And the families now can see the abilities, the capacities, the strength of a child. And on the other hand, children are vulnerable at that time. And it's, yes, because they find themselves as a promise, also the promise of a future. They need support. They need confirmation. They need the confirmation that that promise, that the childhood had been given to them, that promise can really become reality. We don't know exactly in what kind, in which form, but it can become reality. Yes, that's the time of 12. And yes, so I want to close that repetition of what we did yesterday, and just want to make a short remark on another question, what that was about. What would it be if a child would not come to physical parents? if there are surrogate mothers, or after if a child cannot live with mother and father and is given to another family. And yes, we know that the connection that is given by the physical substance from mother and father plays some role, has an important impact on our physical body. But as human beings, we are, on the other hand, very much connected, let's say, to our social parents. And that social parents are the parents that, let's say, that love the child. It is not so important that the parents are the biological parents, but that they are responsible for the child and give the love to that child. And it's more a question for the parents. Are they really able to give the love to that child? Or is it to have that child, is it driven by another intention? Not by love, but by some more egoistic intentions and motives. And that, of course, could be a problem for the child, but not the fact that the biological parents are not present. That plays not a very important role for the development, for the further development of a child. Another question was, how can we help a child to get a connection with the spiritual world? That could be the case if they ask about where people who passed away, where they are now, where the grandfather, grandmother is now, or if an animal dies, where are these individuals? Where are these souls? What's happening with the invisible world? And nowadays, this is very important because in our mainly materialistic culture, we lost the concepts, we lost an imagination of the spiritual world. And the child is very close to a real experience of it. And the child needs that we confirm that kind of reality, that not only the visible world is real, but also the world of our soul, of our will forces, of our feelings, and the individuals from living beyond the threshold of visible world can also be in contact with us. And children have a lively experience of that world. And we as adults lack of that experience if we have not undergone a spiritual development or the development of our own imagination and beliefs to the spiritual world. And then we need to find an adequate language according to the age of the child to get the child in an inner connection and to keep that inner connection by concepts and images. For example, images are the most important thing in that age. Images of the spiritual reality. Yes, you can say a child which the grandfather has died, that the child can find the grandfather inside, in memories, and thinking on and about the grandfather and feeling to him, addressing the grandfather or the person who passed away with words, with prayers, and keep that relationship alive. And that is different, of course, in the second 7 years. Then the memory is more clear, and it is important to have rituals to get into connection with the individuals that passed away, to celebrate their, or to think about their birthdays or the day when they died, and to talk about them to include them in the daily prayers or in daily thoughts. These are rituals that children in that age really love, and they help to find a lively connection with the world of the deceased. Yes, and that would be very different if now children come past their childhood and they come into puberty. Puberty starts with a tremendous physical change, with the menses and the growth of the body, and the voice in boys, the changing of the voice, and these changes also in the proportions of the gestalt of the adolescents now, and beautiful children at the age of 12 looking very harmonious now in that growth, in that improportional growth of the body, become ugly. The skin has inflammations, and they do not really feel happy with their body. They do not, and they feel themselves strange. They feel that their body does not fit to them. They have the question if they are in the right sex, and also that appears at the same time a very, very different perception of the world. The world now and the connection with others is not easy, is not given by rituals, it's not given by a social order, but they feel that they have to find a new relationship to the parents, to mothers and fathers. They do not know if hugging mother and father is adequate now, and they are ashamed because they do not really find themselves in the way they want to be. And then in a lot of ideals, how I should look like, how I should dress myself, how I should behave, that is not now taken from the family, from the old culture, but from new peer groups, from groups of friends, new friends, and people you can inwardly connect with. And now the authorities from the teachers, they change, and new peers are found, and the peer group are the place in which the adolescent in puberty now finds a kind of new family. And that is, of course, very, can be a very difficult situation for the patient, for the parents. They want to protect and to support. They want the best for the development of of their child, which is not a child anymore. They know it on the one hand, and on the other hand, they feel that that child is not happy and does things which are sometimes dangerous, experiences with drugs, with not sleeping, with a lot of computer plays, and what adolescents used to do in that time. Things which are really not easy to tolerate for parents. And now parents have the question how to keep in a contact with that child, their daughter, their son, coming into this big change and questioning all that they have learned before. Good habits forgotten. Knowledge in school forgotten. And that to forget things from the past is needed because they have now to teach themselves, to develop themselves by their own insight. Now, it's not imitation from which they learn. It is not the rhythm of repeating things, not learning from authorities, but learning from their own insight. I understood something. I can understand something. First of all, I learned to question things. Yes, that is the beginning of a self-understanding. Therefore, it's needed to question things which had been clear, which had been obvious in the past. And so it's really a situation of a big crisis. 7 years of crisis, ongoing crisis sometimes. And it is a vulnerable situation because these adolescents do not only harm themselves, but sometimes they also harm others in being a model for them, for example, a bad example, or also in violence. It is a testing of how far can I go? How powerful am I? How weak am I? And to test that, to prove that, that is to go to the limits. That is something which is needed. And of course, it's dangerous because if we don't know where the limits are, we can harm ourselves, we can harm others. And what adolescents now need is two things that, depending on the age, the limits of that parents give are clear. But these limits must be negotiated with the adolescent. The adolescent should agree to the laws, to the rules that you have been negotiating with them. And then that is a more outer aspect of it. And the most important inner perspective is that the parents can and should believe in the strength, in the goodwill, and in the guidance, also in the spiritual guidance of that growing individuality, in that maturing individuality. a belief that this is a necessary process, and this necessary process needs support by trust, confidence, and to be a positive, to offer to be a positive model, not as be as I am as an adult, but whenever you have a problem, I'm ready to listen to you, trying to understand that problem and to find a solution with you. Not you make a mistake and I will make it good. But if you have made a mistake, I will support you in finding the solution. So that could be a principle of the attitude of the adult with regard to the adolescent. We need a lot of patience. And we need the deep understanding of that situation of a crisis when they are sleeping for 16, 20 hours after a party. And on the other side, if they do not sleep for many hours or many days, and also the problems of fulfilling the requirements from school and learning and so on. Yes, we have to accept that a lot of things are on the agenda of an adolescent. Physical changes, mental development of the soul, and social peer groups and social integration, disintegration. These are the problems to foster for an adolescent. And I want to repeat that with a slide. As we have the age between 14 and 21, this is the third period. Now the soul forces are freed for self-experiences. Soul forces have been working from the outside on the body and also on the development of the soul, and now the soul the individual feels connected with inner feelings, with the problems of our lives. And the soul forces are now free for self-experience. The I forces are still occupied with ups and downs of the soul and the individualization of the physical body. So that means the I forces are really occupied. They are not free. So the decisions that an adolescent makes are not really free decisions. In the first part of the adolescence, and then of course after the age of 18, they gain the full legal responsibility, or more or less full legal responsibility. So that means that this period, the I has to learn to take on responsibility. The I has the task to become more and more the director of the soul. And that is, yes, a lesson to be learned in that period of time. So it starts with the initiation to adolescence. And in many cultures, that initiation to adolescence had been celebrated. In some native communities, this initiation is to find a new name. There is a name given for children, and now the adolescent has to find a new name. And how to find that? It's different in many cultures, but it gives an expression that the adolescent needs to find a new identity. He needs to identify himself with a new role, also a role in society, a more or less responsible role in society, and to find a connection with the own ideals, not only what I had been, but what I want to become. So that means initiation into adolescence. And it is the realization of the I, and we learn, we have learning now from inside, as I mentioned before, and we have the development of a sense for truth and authenticity. The adolescents are very, very sensitive if adults are authentic or not. And it is much more interesting for them not to have a perfect parent, mother or father or teacher, but to have an authentic person, a person who can admit mistakes, and not only can admit mistakes, but can show how to overcome, how to make mistakes good, how to turn it into good. This intention of the adolescents to make things good and to work with problems, not to ignore them, not to solve them by violence, but to find good solutions. That is what the adolescents need in that time. Yes, and if you look on our question, how do we learn to care for others? So we found in the first 7 years, it is the fundament for body care, or for meaningful and mindful body care. In the second 7 years, it is to care for social well-being of a community. And now in adolescence, we learn to care for our ideals. That is most important, that ideals are not only a matter of our puberty, and then when we are adult, we know what reality is and forget all the ideals, but that we learn to live with ideals, knowing that they are stars, maybe that never can be reached, but it is worth to follow them, and that it is fruitful to follow them, that I can really change things in my own life. I can change myself, but I also can change things in the world. I can start initiatives. I can help together with others, working for a social economy, working for a healthy food, working for the transition in the climate, and so on, to know that it helps, that it is worth to fight for it. That is the most important things our young adults, people in adolescence, can learn how to care for these ideas, how to care with the inner fire, knowing that this fire can be sometimes very smoky, sometimes very burning hot, sometimes it's lost, and how to inflame it again, together talking with friends, watching what is going on in the world, what the world needs to inflame that inner fire. That is what an adolescent learns to care for, can learn to care for. Yes, we have the maturation of the metabolic and the lymph system in that time. And also another important step in puberty is the so-called first moon node. The moon nodes is an astronomic phenomenon when the moon and the sun are in the same position as they had been in the time of our birth. And in that time, it is 18 years and some months. In that time, there is a recall, a memory of our goal, of our intention to come into this biography. That is very, very important to know about that, because it can help the individual in puberty to think about the profession, to think about the next steps into adulthood, and to know, to get an inner perspective about the profession, about the studies, about the interest, about the goal of my life. And if we know that in this time, the question of what is the purpose of my life, what is the goal, plays an important role, it can help to be aware if a boy or a girl, of our son or daughter, is in such a situation, and that we can be aware of it. And maybe it's also good to talk about birth and the situation in which the child, or now the adolescent, came into that world, and how was the character of the child, and what was visible of the character and the future of that child from the very early childhood. Yes, now it is about to get, at the end of adolescence, to get the full social responsibility. And now we can also look what is love, and love in the perspective of an adolescent should be that, or can be that, love is freedom. We know as adults that love is not only freedom, but we experience love as freedom in puberty. Freedom, and of course a demand. It is a very new field of experience. And yes, to learn that I can give love and that I can receive love. That is maybe a theme of puberty. And for us as adults, we should remember what we have been burning for in our puberty, what was important for us, what had been our ideals. We also can remember our first love, and as we know, the first love in most cases has two phases. The first love is, the first phase is tremendous joy, and sometimes it's also, it many times ends with pain. It ends painful, sometimes for both sides, sometimes only for one side. Yes, and it is important to look on that, and also how we did overcome that crisis, how that crisis had been healed, if there was a wound because of the first love was not able to persist. And then, of course, we must be aware of the injuries that had been caused by violence. And that is indeed a theme of puberty. There is a lot of violence. And let me say one thing about this kind of violence coming from an adolescence. In many times, the aggression comes because there are good intentions, but the knowledge how to carry out, how to realize these intentions are very limited. And if you want to do something and you are not able to do it, you sometimes do it with force, with power, and with violence. You will harm, you can harm others by following your intention with inconvenient methods. And also the misuse of power and disappointments, and also guilt comes up in that situation, because sometimes we know that we had been harming others, that we are not only victims, but also those who are responsible for the wounds of others. Yes. Now I need to come back to the time after puberty. We are now in the situation that we are legally fully responsible for what we do. That means that our I is born. Our I is able to encounter the whole world, more or less, because we know our I is in constant development, but now it's visible, it's on the earth. And that means we are responsible. But responsible for what? That is the first thing we have to learn. We have to explore the world, not in the same way as we did it as toddlers, not in the way we did it in puberty, not in the second 7 years, but in studying, in learning a profession, and sometimes in learning in having a family, having children. Yes, the last generations, or that is my generation, most parents became their first children in that period of time. Yes, and our parents got their children, that means us, when they were at the beginning of 20s, sometimes earlier. Now that has been changing. Now it's about 30 people are about 30, parents are about 30 before they get the first child. So that period of time to make different experiences in trying this or that kind of lifestyle, having journeys throughout the whole world, going into different countries, meeting different groups, having different professions in that time. That is the beauty of this time. We have the possibility, the inner possibility, not always, of course, the financial possibilities, that is depending on the social situation in which we live. But many of us are in the strength of lives, and this strength gives us also the possibility beyond financial abilities to get the world, get experienced in the world in different countries and different social situations. And this is beautiful. Sometimes it is challenging, very challenging. But the problem, the crisis of that period of our life is that we feel this time of learning, this time of experiencing different ways of life, different social situations, this time will end, and I have to make decisions. It starts with the decisions what profession I should learn. A decision, should I continue to make a career in that profession I had learned, or do I need to change that profession? Sometimes that professional career is interrupted because a child comes, because a family, we had been founding a family, and then the professional career has to be interrupted or to stop. Things get a total new direction in our lives, and that could also cause deep crises. And that's the question of that next period of our lives. Yes, it is the so-called birth of our sentient soul. We had the physical development in the first 3 periods, 7 years periods, and now in the next 7 years periods, we are developing our souls until the age of 42, and then from 42 to 63, we are developing more the spiritual aspects of our individuality. And the development of the soul starts with the development of the sentient soul. The sentient soul is that part of our soul through which we experience the outer world, the world of the senses, the development, history, everything which can be seen, which can be watched, which can be observed, which can be learned from the physical world, but also from the inside world, from the world of our mental and also the spiritual aspects. They can be developed now by the sentient soul. These are the years of study and travel and the I forces are freed for self-directed decisions. We are learning now from our experience, not only from understanding, but making experiences to prove our understandings, to prove our findings. The development of a sense of freedom and responsibility. That is important, and with regard on caring, it is that we learn to care for ourselves. To find the balance between the requirements from outside, balance of the requirements from the social environment in which we live, our peer group, our families, our study groups. We have to care for them, and we also have to care for our spiritual relationships. So, to start a path of spiritual development is also an expression of that birth of the sentient soul. To start with an approach to a spiritual pathway. That means caring for oneself. We should learn, we can learn to meditate, for example. Now, the encounter with ourself is that we could say it is self-awareness. As we have a self-awareness in the first 3 years, in the 3rd year of our life, when we have had our first memory. So a deeper understanding, a first glimpse of what we are as a spiritual being can be found in that period of our lives. And it's not so much directed to a certain age, because we know that we are more and more, how far and how quick we develop is more and more individual. Yes, and in this time we learn that love is not only freedom, but it also needs responsibility, and we should not marry the person we love, but we should marry the person we love and we can be responsible for. So that is something new. And if you want to reflect on that time of your biography, you can remember the fundamental experiences and studies, hobbies, journeys, relationships, professions. Yes, you can write books on that 7 periods of your life, because a lot of things happened, and it could be a form of crisis if that is not possible. And many in former times, it were especially the women who married and had children in that period of time, that they had not the chance to discover different other needs, different other interests in their life. And they had to be very focused on caring for children, caring for the household, caring for sometimes also the economic responsibility. And so that was not a time of study and travel, but it was a time that feels like being in a prison. And that could have an impact on further steps in the development of that biography. Yes, so it's to remember that, and also to remember the burden and the crisis of decision making, which is really hard sometimes in that time. And that is something that is a gift from the first 7 years, that decision making is easier if we had made so to say, our homework in the first 3-7 periods of our lives, then this decision making is easier. But it also can be individual crisis in decision making. Yes, and then we must also be aware of injuries from that time that could be caused by social or biographical determinations and limitations. I mentioned that just before, also to be aware of it. So if we are aware of it, we can try to compensate it. Now I have to finish the journey through our biography, and it would take some more days to go through the other 7-year stages and through the moon nodes and other very important steps in our biography. But the good thing is that you can say that there are steps and there is a development of our soul and our spiritual life, but there is more and more freedom in that. We are very much determined in the development of the first 7 years, a bit less in the second. We are more free in puberty. Now that is between 21 and 28. It's a time in which we feel very free and can experience our freedom and bring it together with responsibility. And freedom and responsibility, if we gain that, that is a very good fundament to master the next periods of our lives. And if we miss that, if we miss freedom and responsibility as a soul force, or as soul forces, as spiritual forces, maybe if we miss the fundaments from the first 7 years, I want to go back to some yes, I want to come back to the questions. What can we do if we miss a development from the future, from the past? If we feel there had been a wound in the first 7 years, in the second 7 years, there had been a wound in puberty. Now I do not talk about psychosomatic or psychiatric diseases which could also arise from traumata. That this is not that I want to talk now about. This needs professional assistance if there is a trauma. But in general, if we're talking about wounds, if we're talking about steps that we had been missing, these wounds can be healed by the further development in our biography. And we can support that if we understand what has happened. And therefore, to study biography, to study our own biographies, and to study the rules of biographies, to study the biographies of famous persons also can help to understand what has happened in my own biography. And to learn from talks with our parents, with our friends, with our siblings, what has happened in the first 3-7 years periods, to understand that what has happened, that is the first step to heal wounds. The second step is to confess that we played a role in that process. And of course, in the first 7 years, we are not responsible for things that are done with us. Even if some people feel like that they are responsible for the devotion of the parents, for example. It's important to know that the responsibility for things that happened in this period are not fully given to the child, or not given to the child. So we have to confess our role to be a victim, or later on also, what is our active role? How did we try to cope with such a situation? That means to confess our own role in the process, to identify the role in our own process. And then what is needed as a step is to sacrifice that, to say it plays no role if you are victim or whatever how we acted. We have to sacrifice that. Because we can say it is in the past. It has happened. We cannot change what has happened. That means to sacrifice, to confess that the past cannot be changed. It can be healed, but not be changed. That means to sacrifice our own role. And then we can start a process of transformation. And that transformation can be, on the first hand, that we avoid to act in old patterns. I know it is not possible to totally not to slip into old patterns. If we find we cannot trust people, other people, because there had been a lot of disappointments in the past, we cannot say, oh, now from now on I want to trust, I want to be confident. Of course, that is not possible. But we can avoid it. We can avoid to say, no, I will not trust you. We can try to avoid old patterns when we understood that our behavior comes from such a pattern. And then we can replace the old pattern by a good new habit. For example, if we find we are not confident, we do not trust another person, even a person which we feel very close with, there is always a question, is that true what he says? A good habit would be not to question that, but the good habit would be to talk about that uncertainty, to say, you know, I want to trust on you. I want to be confident, but I'm not sure. I know that is not your problem, it's my problem. But can we find a way that that it is more easy for me to trust you, to be confident? That is a good habit, not to say no, but to open the door a bit in a protected way. That is what we can all do in any situation as a transformation process. And what we can all do else is a further step, and that is to decide to follow the path of initiation, as Michaela described it yesterday. She said that the trauma is a physical realization of crossing the threshold, which is a normal and healthy process on the spiritual level. And if it is transformed on the physical side, then it harms. Then it is the evil. And to learn to cross the threshold in an adequate way, that is what we call the path of initiation, path of schooling. And that is very much described in Rudolf Steiner, how to achieve knowledge of the spiritual world, for example, and many other books from Rudolf Steiner. And the transformation process is a lifelong process. We are never ready. That's important to know. Even if there is a severe trauma in our youth or later on, we know that it is not gone. It is a lifelong process to heal that or to cope with that trauma. It belongs to us. We have to integrate it in our own biography. That means it is a lifelong process. And if we confess that, if we understand that, then it is also possible to integrate a trauma into our life in communities. We have to communicate, we have to be in a communion, a community with all these people who are following their own biography, their own biographical pathway. And we have to integrate it into our own destiny. That means to say yes to our own destiny. So I also need to give some recommendation on literature, and that is what I want to share. I also will put it in the chat. Rudolf Steiner had been talking a lot about biography, and this is a compilation of some lectures from Rudolf Steiner. And a very famous anthroposophist talking about and writing about biography work is Gudrun Burkhardt. And there are also books available in English, and I guess some of them are also translated into Mandarin. Thank you very much for listening and allowing me to overstretch the time. And maybe if there are some questions, we can answer more or less questions now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir, for the very detailed sharing. So we have a bit of time left, so we can open for a quick Q&A session, I guess. Yeah, is that okay, Mr. Rolf?
Yes, it's okay for me, but it's on you to choose maybe questions which are not too much in the detail, but that have a more general aspect.
Okay. So if those of you who would like to raise some questions, please type it down in the chat box so we can answer them.
谢谢 Rolf 老师的分享。那现在我们进入了问答环节。那如果你有什么疑问的问题想问 Rolf 老师的话，请在我们聊天室里面打下。然后呢，尽量不要问太过刁钻的问题，因为我们的时间只剩下15分钟，就到我们的晚餐时间。
I mean, there are some questions, but I guess it has already been answered throughout the process. So are there any more questions? Okay, that is one. Okay, there is one. Someone that said that asked if so you could speak a bit more about integrating trauma into community and own destiny.
Yes, thank you. That is a very, very good question. And I think it's very important. You know, we are all, as human beings, we are all developing. And we would be animals if we would stop to develop. But development is very individual, and the speed of development is also very important and relevant. And now imagine we are in a family, or we are in a bigger community, on our place where we work, or wherever. These are all individuals, all they are developing, and all of us have their traumas and have their stories and have their way that is needed to develop. And sometimes the one have to develop trust, the other has to develop independence, and the third has to overcome jealousy, and another has to be more reliable to others. So everybody has his own story. And that makes the social life so interesting and so complicated. But the good thing is that we also can help each other. Because maybe we are skilled in trust, because we have such a deep connection with our body, a deep trust in the wisdom of the spiritual world and the power of nature. We are so full of trust, and we can share that confidence in our life with others. And then others who are not so stable in their physical body, which are not sure if this is right or not, they can find in us, or in the person who has been developing such confidence, they can find stuff to be upright, something to also to rest for a moment. And so we can share our good things with others, and we can show our wounds to others. That is also something which creates community, not only to share things in which we are good, but also to share the things which we have to develop, to share our wounds. And of course, we should not do that in talking about nothing else but our wounds, but to be trying to be as supportive to others as much as possible, but also be aware that we need others and to ask for help, and to bring both things into a balance, things that we can offer to others and to show us ourselves as vulnerable. To be vulnerable means that we are ready to develop. That is what I mean to integrate our own transformation process into a community. And now that is a question: how can we form vessels in a community to allow such processes. That is the question of community development. It's not only a personal question. It happens on the personal encounter, but it's also a question how we organize a teamwork that we can share things in which we are good, our abilities and capacities, our competencies. And on the other side, we allow individual development, individual vulnerability. Yes, so far.
Yes, thank you, sir, for the prompt explanation. And we still have a bit of time. So there is another questions that they would like you to elaborate more. Is about the Rubicon during the child development. Yeah. They would like you to elaborate more about it because it is considered the most important crossing point for a child. So some of them would like to understand there.
Yes, maybe I can answer that with regard on the specific situation in Asia. That is a bit different from the European. And that belongs to the tradition, to the very, very ancient tradition of the development of the cultural development in Asia. In Asia, community, family, clans play a much more important role than in Europe. In Europe, individualization, to become an individual and responsible individual, despite our origin from family, nation, and so on. That is very much in the Western tradition. And that kind of development gives a lot of emphasis on the development of the individual. And with the individual development also on egoism. So the Western culture is a very egoistic culture. And the Eastern culture, which is much more connected with communities, and the ancestors play a much more important role than in the Western side. Now, in a time in which the individuality has been developed, this causes a lot of more conflict in the Eastern cultures than in the Western. The Western cultures have the problem to overcome egoism and to transform egoism in a social, responsible community building, integrating individuality into the community. And the Eastern culture have more the question to allow the individual to develop in a community. And therefore, the question on the Rubicon is so much stronger than in the Western side. Because you have to understand that this development to feel yourself deeply disconnected from your family is an important step. It is not an accident if this happened. And I have the impression that for you, that is an accident. It should not be. It is important that it happens. And you should not try to avoid it. You must not enhance it. You must not push it. It comes from its own. And that is the Rubicon development, that any child in this second 7 years comes to the point to say, am I really the child of my parents? And if you are lucky and the child shares this question with you, then you can say, yes, you are born in our family and you are very welcome. But you are also an individual that has a life that is separated from us. You will leave that family and you are allowed to leave that family. You can come back whenever you want, but it's your life and you are going outside. You can explore the world, and you can explore and you will learn about yourself and where you belong to from your own perspective. And that is good. That is the way how you can support this Rubicon question. And the same is, if you have the experience with, there is a grandmother that died. Yes, on the one hand, you can say, yes, she belongs to our ancestors. And we have a lot of other ancestors, and our life depends on our ancestors. That is good. But the individual way is that you can listen to an inner dialogue with this beloved person, with this person you have an inner connection with. And to find that individual approach, and not only the family approach, not to have the picture in a shrine, but to have an individual approach, a personal approach to this person. That is how you can support, let's say, spiritual independence, spiritual freedom. Yes, and if you skip that, then puberty can be more with more conflicts, because then the conflict of separation, or the crisis of separation, of an inner separation, comes to the outside. And then in puberty, there is resistance against the laws of the adults. And if that happens later on, then it is the question, if you have a family, is the family my whole life? Or do I have also an independent life from my family? Then it becomes really a social problem if you have not gained this inner freedom, this inner independence. Do you understand how a normal inner process can come to a conflict process in later times, also as a possibility to find a solution? But then it is on the physical level, and then it is connected with can be connected with disruptions. And therefore it's important to allow this inner process of what you call the Rubicon. Maybe it's needed to understand the word Rubicon. The Rubicon is a river in Italy. And there was a decision by Julius Caesar, which was one of the big emperor in the year 50 before Christ. And he decided to conquer Rome. And crossing that river he cannot go back. He made this decision, and then he has to conquer Rome. And that is the Rubicon, that it's not possible, if you cross that river, it's not possible to go back into childhood. That's all. There is no back into childhood, even if childhood was the most beautiful place. After birth, it's not possible to go back in the mother's uterus. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the explanation. It seems like we are just in time to go for the dinner break. Yes, thank you very much, sir, for today's sharing.
我们谢谢
Thank you.
Rolf 老师的 ，Thank you very much。我们谢谢 Rolf 老师的分享，相信大家获益良多。那现在6点呢到7点呢是我们的晚餐时间。
But before your leave for your dinner, we have a quick announcement. It's regarding the reflection session later on 8:30 p.m. Now we hope that all our participants get a fair chance to share. So if you would like to share your insight throughout this conference, please raise your hand during that session. We will announce it and you just raise your hand if you would like to share. Yeah, please don't go through our registration team because that will be a bit too difficult for us to catch all of you. Yeah, so you just raise your hand in the Zoom over here and we will unmute you and you can share. Now, everyone, all the participants who would like to share, you only get 2 minutes to share, yeah? We only have 2 minutes because time is a bit short, so only 2 minutes per sharing. And if the time is up, MCs, we will just mute you and go on to the next one, okay? So give yourself some time to summarize what you want to share in 2 minutes, yeah?
Yes, only sharing, but no question asking and doing the sections, yeah?
Yes.
So that 那等一下我们9点，等一下我们大概8点半的时候呢，会有个回顾的环节。那这个回顾的环节呢，大家可以踊跃的参加，将这2天你学习到的东西整合一下，用简单的可能是1个字或者是1句话来分享。那每位分享者呢，将给予2分钟的时间。如果时间到的话呢，我们自己将会把你的麦克风关闭。那你要如何参与这个环节呢？就到那个时候呢，你就举手。那我们就会选上你，然后就把你的麦克风打开。所以一样，那个环节呢，只是可以分享回顾你的收获，而不是来询问任何的问题。那还有呢，等下我们7点回来的时候呢，有我们的崇义老师带我们做这个伸展与收缩的这个U6美运动。那昨天错过了的朋友，与会者呢，那等下你们就可以提早进来，那就不要再错过这个环节。
And regarding about the literatures that Mr. Rolf had shared earlier, we will compile it and send it via email to you in a list so that you don't have to be too worried that you missed out any of them. And later on, after our dinner break, we will have again Chongyi to guide us through the contraction and expansion exercise. So please do come back in time at 7 p.m. for that. So happy dinner.
刚才 Rolf 老师所分享的那几本书籍的话呢，我们在会整理了过后呢，再用电邮的方式呢发给全部的与会者。所有的资料我们都从外面发出去，所以大家都不用担心。那晚餐愉快，那我们等一下待会儿见。